So I started the recording. I'm not going to officially begin our webinar for about another minute. I want to wait till everyone's here, but you're in the right place if you are a new faculty and you're starting off your, I guess it would be your third day or second and a half day of new faculty orientation with a session on tips for effective teaching the first day face-to-face or online. We also have a lot of people who are current VSU faculty in this session today, since we opened it up to all of campus. And yes, we will be providing the recording. All of our webinars are being recorded and uploaded into a BlazeView shell called BlazeView 101 that all faculty on campus have access to. So all the webinars that are going on these first 2 weeks, we knew everyone's schedules were crazy. We wanted to make sure we had recording. Yes, chat does get recorded. You have to, when you watch the recording, you're going to have to almost like click. It's interesting. You have to click on the right side to open up the chat. But yes, the chats get recorded, and you can actually even separately download chats. So that's something you want to think about when you teach with Blackboard Collaborate is you will, through the recording, have the chat, but also you can always download the chats as well. And those are good questions. Yeah, even though our session today isn't specifically about using Blackboard Collaborate, I'm going to demonstrate how to use it through our webinar. And that's exactly why for the new faculty, we wanted you guys to spend a day in Collaborate so you could start to get familiar with this tool for teaching. I know yesterday you guys were in Teams all day, and you can definitely use that for teaching, but Collaborate is going to be embedded within your BlazeView online courses. So this is like the primary video conferencing collaboration tool that we typically recommend for, class. But again, you can always use whichever tools, as the provost said, you prefer, as long as we can help you support, if we license them and support them. Awesome. Someone is already figuring out how to use the raise hand tool. Yes, Emily. Yeah, you have a question?
I have a quick question. Are you guys on campus anywhere?
You mean, oh, my office? Yes, yep, we are. I'm currently this morning working from home because we're all in shift remote schedules, and then in the afternoon I go on campus. But we are open from 8 to 5.
I meant for the session. Sorry, Jamie.
Oh, no. This session is purely virtual today. Nope.
Oh, yep. Okay. Some of us had signed up to be in the library in person, so.
Yeah, the other presentations, hey, it's Sherry. The other presentations this morning, there will be people in the room with the registrar and all that. We reserved the computer classroom because we didn't know whether everyone would have their computers and so forth set up. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the 11 o'clock one that's in the Odom Library?
Yes, and there should be someone in the room for the other ones this afternoon as well when we work with the registrar, e-learning, and IT.
Okay. Yeah, Amy and I are here, but we thought it was for the morning one as well. So that's why.
Well, you have computers in front of you, right?
Yeah, I just logged into the internet on my laptop in here. So.
Perfect. Yep, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yep. Sorry about that. Well, I wanted to do this one purely virtual because I want to teach you guys how to use Collaborate for a kind of fully online course, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit today. But yeah, it should work for you in there, just wherever you are, just like we're all in different places too. So okay. Sorry about the confusion.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, well, I want to go ahead and get started because we've got a lot to do for these 2 hours. I'm so glad we have, again, so many wonderful new faculty joining us. I met some of you 2 nights ago for the welcome session, and then we have a lot of our current faculty joining us today. And I wanted to start off with, as everyone's doing, kind of getting familiar with the chat. So again, as I mentioned to some of you, I just trying to catch up for who just joined, that we are not going to be learning, like I'm not going to be teaching you about Blackboard Collaborate today. Hold on, I need to mute somebody's mic because someone's mic is giving us feedback. Let's see. Emily, yes, thank you. You muted before I got to you. Great. So that's one thing, right? Everyone everyone wants to make sure to have their mics muted when they're not speaking. We will have opportunities for y'all to speak. And like Emily did, there's a little hand raise tool there. You see the little person with their hand raised down there at the bottom of your screen. So you're happy, please use that. Again, think about as we use this tool today, how you might use it to teach. And I won't, again, be teaching about the tool, but I'm going to be using a lot of its different functions. And I wanted to start off today with the chat and everyone getting comfortable in your chair, your couch, or where Emily is in the computer lab. Grab a coffee, a notebook, give yourself some grace, and really think about what you need physically to learn and engage with us today. And I actually recommend that you do something like this for students as you teach through video conferencing software like this, because Zoom fatigue, even though we're not using Zoom here at VSU, is real. It really does drain our brains and our bodies, and so you want to call attention to how to comfort and rejuvenate your body and the bodies of your students. So that's the grace and flexibility. And similarly, I know a number of you, all of us, are managing family life and childcare, and your students will be in the same situation. So kind of that's what I'm asking with this first question, and you want to make sure maybe to ask your students is really everyone focused on what do they need to best engage with today. We want everyone to learn, and so, set your learning environment in that way. And for instance, I have a little pillow, if you guys can see the video, right behind me in my chair, because if I sit in this chair and stare at a screen all day, my back ends up killing me. So that's what I need to learn to engage today. I've got some water nearby, and I hope some of you have some coffee or some treats or some other things to keep you moving for the day. As many of you know about me for the workshops that I run, and even the new faculty who met me Tuesday night, I do a lot of interaction through any teaching training that I do. And so we are going to begin with breakout groups, because you want to learn how to use breakout groups in Blackboard Collaborate. Teams does not have a really good breakout group function right now, but Collaborate does, kind of like Zoom. And so I want to show this tool to you, but I also want to do it for a certain reason. So I'm first going to right here show you guys the instructions for the breakout group activity we're going to do. So as you see, what's going to happen is you guys are going to, Blackboard Collaborate, I'm going to have it randomly assign you to groups. I'm going to have you 8, 16, 20. I'm going to do 8 different groups. So you may have 3 or 4 people in each group. You may have a mix of new faculty or other faculty, and please say hi and turn on your cameras if you can when you get into the breakout groups. It'll throw you into it in a second. But in those breakout groups, for about 10 or 15 minutes, what I'm going to want you guys to do is answer the below questions. You won't have time to answer all of them, so just pick and discuss 1 or 2 above the line, above that dash line. And all of these questions will then be used for interviewing me, and I'll talk about this later, when we come back as a large group. So you kind of don't have to worry about the next 25 to 30 minutes, but just focus on the 10 to 15 minutes. And yes, Kurt, you have a question?
Sorry, where do we find Blackboard Collaborate?
It is in your BlazeView shells. It will be.
Okay, so we go to BlazeView.
Well, are you asking literally right now, or are you asking for the future?
I am, well, I guess both.
Right now you are in it because I gave you a guest link to join it. But when you use it as students, it will be, they enter it through the BlazeView course shell.
Okay, so, okay, I'm sorry. I thought I was paying attention. Where do I find that link that you shared?
You're in it right now. Are you were talking to?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'm watching the screen. So
Perfect. You are in Blackboard Collaborate right now. Yes.
Okay. So how do I? Okay. So how
You're
do I
in
get to the? Okay. So how do I get to this in the future?
You will go through your BlazeView course shell, which you'll learn about later this afternoon.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
It's okay, right? This virtual world, we all don't know who we are. We don't know what day it is. We don't know what year it is. I'm with you. So yes. So that's what's cool about Collaborate, is it's embedded into our learning management system. That's why it's a really cool tool for teaching, rather than like Kurt's saying, you don't have to go through an external. But what I did was shared with all of you guys an external link just to help facilitate the process. Okay, so you are in Blackboard Collaborate right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to now sort you guys into breakout groups. Sherry, you're going to end up in a breakout group, I think. We'll see. I'm not sure how it works if you're a moderator. But let me, I got to click a few buttons. And what's going to happen is it's going to randomly assign. Now, again, if you were to use breakouts, you can actually assign them to certain students or label them or make teams. You can do a lot of things, and you'll learn about that through e-learning webinars. But I'm just going to do randomly assign them. And then I'm going to also end up sharing a slide, this slide with all of you in your breakout group, so you have the instructions with you. Now, here's the thing. When I do this with students, I always encourage them to take their cell phone right now and take a picture of the group activity instructions. Because even though I'm going to try to share this slide, sometimes things happen or whatever. And so that's the same thing I'm going to say with all of you right now. If you've got your cell phone near you, take a screenshot of these instructions, because you're going to need them when you're in your breakout group. Again, I'm going to share the slide, but we all know how that technology sometimes goes crazy or something happens. So similar with your students, you want to make sure they have a copy of the instructions in front of them, whether in a screenshot or you know, by sharing the material. So what's going to happen is I'm going to click a button right now. You're going to get thrown into a little breakout group with about 4 other people. Please, if you can, at that point, unmute yourself and show your camera so you can get to know folks a little more in that room. And then, as I said, start talking and answering the first couple questions, right? Talking with yourselves, right? What are your goals for this teaching tips first day of session, right? What reservations do you have? What are you bringing to this session, and things like that. So it's going to feel a little bit like whiplash, because I'm going to literally press this button and you're going to go into the room, okay? So I will also pop into the rooms to check on you guys and tell you when time is up. So just kind of hang tight in those rooms. And yeah, I'm looking at it. We have about 4 people in each room. So I'm going to press now. And then, as I said, I will end up sharing the slide. So in the breakout groups, you can still chat with everyone, even if you don't have audio or a camera. But keep in mind, again, this is something you're going to really want to recognize with your students too. Right? If you don't have a camera or things like that, then it will feel a little disconnected when you do breakout groups. Okay, so I'm going to throw you guys in there. And again, please focus on the instructions for the first 10 to 15 minutes. And the slide will get in there in a minute. So just give some patience, and hopefully you took a screenshot with your camera. Okay, have fun. So Sherry, it looks like it kept you in the main room, just FYI. Okay.
I think we're back.
We're back in on the main room.
Back in the main room.
Okay, everybody, we are back into the main room. So your first experience of a breakout in Collaborate, right?
Yeah.
Very similar to Zoom or other breakouts you've done, but notice how hard it is to stay on track, right? To stay focused on the activity. So similar when you do this with students, you really need to pop into the rooms like I did and have questions or something in front of them that they focus on or they all collaborate with. Also, if many of you can please mute your mics right now, I can go through and mute them, but I see a number of you have it open. I just want to make sure we don't have a background noise. Jim, I'm going to mute you, and Kurt and Mark, if y'all could mute yourself for a second, that would be great, just so we don't hear any background noise. So let's now do our large group discussion. And there's a reason we're doing this activity, this very specific activity. But I'd love to have a representative from groups. We are not going to be able to go through all the groups, so I'm thinking maybe only 3 of the groups. To raise your hand and then unmute yourself and share aloud one of your group's answers. And remember, answer to the questions above the dotted line. So please share what your group talked about, one answer to one of those questions, and then I want you to look at the questions underneath the line and ask me one of those. Okay, we're doing what's called a reciprocal interview. So I'll explain this. There's a reason we're doing this. But so answer for your group one of the questions above the line, and then turn around and ask me one of the bottom questions. So I'd love to have representatives from groups. If you want to be your rep, raise your hand and I'll call on you and share with all of us. I'll start calling on you guys. Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Jim, I called on you. I clicked your hand. So go ahead and unmute yourself and share.
I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. I was in a group with Keith, Carlesia, and Carson, and it was nice meeting them. And we had some good discussions. Some of the best things that could happen from this webinar, many of us come here with the idea that we have to be a perfect kind of an instructor and know everything all at once. And one of the best things that we can take away from here is a confidence just to be human and to know that we can take things step by step and not to feel pressured by the time it is to August 17th and the time that it takes to be totally prepared and all that. And one of the things that would be good to do, particularly if we're new to teaching, is just to be able to say, I don't know something, and to actually say that in front of the students, because we were told that the students here at VSU are a gracious group. And so just to be able to be human and have confidence and come away feeling like we don't have to be perfect. That would be
Oh, well, I hope you're already seeing that modeled, and I'll share even with me, with the way I started this webinar, that I want us all to be human, right? We all need to give ourselves grace as teachers and as students. And I'll just let you guys know, I did not have a background in e-learning or online teaching before I even started using all these tools so much over the past few years. So I'm still learning. I'm director. I oversee the Center for E-Learning, y'all, and I'm still figuring out all these tools and tricks and things like that. So and guess what? I'm teaching a class in 2 weeks, and I haven't finished prepping for it. So if that makes any of you feel better, I am in your shoes, and guess what? We all are. So I hope, yes, you will hear from this webinar that I think VSU and I foremost value humanism and grace, and that we are all far from perfect, but if you try and work hard and fail, learn from your failures. So that may lead into one of the questions you want to ask me. You're the ones on the bottom?
Well, it's not one that's under the dotted line, but one of the things that we were wondering is why do we have so many different types of platforms here at VSU, Jamie, that we don't use them. We don't use them all.
Okay, so yeah, well, so here's the thing, and I'm going to try to answer this quickly. The way VSU budgets work, and honestly, this surprised me when hold on, I think I need to make sure we're recording. Oh yeah, we are recording. Sorry. I just sometimes when we go into breakout groups, it stops recording. So VSU, the way budgets work is we all, like as center directors or department heads, we have control over our own budget. So if you had money in your own budget to buy a software for your department, then you can do that. You could all purchase Zoom. If in your department budget you have money and you want to purchase Zoom, you can. So one of the reasons is that we all have control of budgets. So you saw Ashley Cooper yesterday. If you are a new faculty, I don't know if you are, Jim, sorry if you're not, but Ashley Cooper used WebEx. Well, that's because her department purchased that, or she purchased that from her own license. So there's a reason that we have a lot of different tools, is different departments have different needs, and they will then purchase the license for their own needs, right? And that makes sense. We want our departments to be able to make their own budget decisions if they have the money. But the question about what are the larger university-sponsored tools, though there are two of them. For video conferencing, it is Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, which we're using right now, which is an external learning tool that you can embed into your online BlazeView course, or it is Microsoft Teams. So those are the two university-wide licenses that we pay big bucks for, right? Your own department would not be able to afford it, maybe. So that's one of the reasons. I can tell you that every year with budget cuts, we're told to revise how we use our budgets and make sure we don't have duplicate tools. So yep. So for your purposes, if you're new here, focus on Teams or Blackboard Collaborate Ultra and BlazeView. Those will be any tools embedded into BlazeView, and Teams will be your primary tools to turn to. Great.
Okay. Thank you.
So, okay, so I saw a bunch of hands raised, and see, this is me still trying to figure out how to do this tool. I think I saw, if you raised your hand, now I can't find, see, you guys, I'm still learning. There were a bunch of hands raised, and see, now I can't find them all, but whoever raised your hand earlier, just go ahead and unmute and share your group's question, your answer to your question. I remember the names, but I can't remember them, so. Sorry, there were many of you who raised your hand. Did you guys bring them down? Go ahead. Another group, please, someone to represent from your other group, just go ahead and raise your hand or speak.
Hey guys, I'm Stuart Taylor. I was with Lonnie and Patty and Lauren. I know one thing we'd really like to get out of this webinar today is kind of the worst case scenarios. One of the questions was, what was our own worst case scenario for the webinar? And that kind of extends to the worst case scenario for class webinars. And definitely our worst case is just tech breakdown. We can't really control some things, like a student's internet might go out. Things might kind of go wonky, and just figuring out what the workarounds are for that. Do we need to, or not do we need, but how do we talk students through that on the first day?
Okay. So my quick answer to that is actually our former person's present answer, which is, guess what? Just accept and admit there are going to be a ton of mistakes. It's going to be a bumpy first week, 2 weeks of technology challenges. So that's how you're going to talk students through it, is just we all, you're going to do your best. You're going to leverage the resources you have. So our IT office, who you're going to meet later today through Blackboard Collaborate, they're going to give you a bunch of resources. They have a phone number you call if you're in your classroom and something messes up, just like a lot of universities. You're going to meet Marcia Dukes later today, who is our Associate Director of E-Learning, and so she works with me because I oversee e-learning, and so we have staff support that you can call and email for help, and there's a lot of online resources, and so it's going to be a lot of people on their feet, trying to problem solve quick emergencies, but remember, these are it's going to be a lot all within the first week, and so you're just going to kind of, unlike other semesters, we're just going to have to accept there's going to be some messy bumps. But yes, we do have resources and tools and staff who will be on call your first week to try to respond to your challenges. So good question. Which question would you like to ask me?
Well, I was hoping to slightly add to one of them. On the question about your philosophy of learning and teaching, I was wondering if that philosophy differs or changes at all when it comes to virtual learning and virtual teaching.
Great question. Actually, it doesn't. Some 3 big tenets to my philosophy of teaching and learning is inclusion, inclusive pedagogy, interaction, so active learning, and humanism. So humanizing, actually what our first presenter talked about, right? That we're embodied humans, and learning is best when we attend to our bodies and our emotions and the humanistic side of learning. So those 3 things, active learning, humanization, and now, what did I say the first one was? How did I describe it? Inclusion, are all practices that you can do online. Actually, they become even more important when you teach online, right? Just like what we're doing today. Really more important to even try to humanize through images, through faces, through interaction, this modality, or else students will really kind of disengage. Yep. So what I'm hoping you're learning, even like what we're doing right now, is how to do that, right? How to do active learning, how to humanize a course like I did, an online course like I did with the comfort, the couch introduction, and how to do inclusion. So if you guys have noticed, I'm really trying to get everyone to speak in the chat. I'm trying to call on people. I'm trying to give everyone a voice, right? Which is a tenet of inclusive pedagogy. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So do we have another volunteer from another group? Again, I apologize, I missed your hand raises. So please just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask or share what your group's answer was to the question. Go ahead, Sandy.
I just always hate it when a speaker's waiting for someone to respond. So in my heart, I just always want to chime in. But I wanted to say that we were sort of a mixture of new and old faculty. Dang phones, and
For people who don't know, Sandy is a biology professor here already at VSU for many years.
and I just wanted to say, well, we have some new faculty in there, and I wanted to tell them the biggest thing, what reservations do you have, not about so much about the webinar, but I'm just praying this webinar can help me a little bit with the fear and apprehension I have about the first week of classes. Because I even talked to Peggy Mock, who's more experienced than I am, and we're just petrified. So I really feel for the new faculty, and I told them that not to worry about it and to try to ask people for support, because this whole thing, I'm never scared about teaching. I love it, but this is really, really, I literally had an anxiety attack after the first webinar.
Okay.
Honestly.
So let me just go ahead and say that everything we're doing right now, you guys don't realize it, you're doing a first day of teaching thing right now. I'm going to tell you about that in a second. Everything we're going to do today is a way to alleviate those anxieties and those fears for yourself and your students. So I'm going to actually use this as a segue to now move on, because I want to make sure this is a challenge with doing group work online, and you know that in class, right? To have too much talk and then you don't get through some of your main points. So I want to use what Sandy said as a great segue now to move on to explain what you guys just did. Why are we even doing this breakout in this weird way where I pose these questions and then you're asking me questions and all this kind of stuff? So Sandy, what I'm going to share with you right now, I think will be an answer to this concern about the anxiety and the panic we're going to have the first day. So if you guys will bear with me, what you just did is called a reciprocal student-professor interview. This is actually called this is a best practice for teaching on the first day of class. It can be done face-to-face or online, right? See, we're doing it online. It is based in the research. People in teaching and learning have studied this actual activity that we just did, and I'm going to walk you through it again, as a way to relieve anxieties, to build comfort and community the first day of class, to set your expectations, and to do a lot of things. So let me now walk you through what we just did. It's a much more strategic and research-based activity than a typical icebreaker, or than, for instance, just winging it in talking to your students and or showing your syllabus. We all know that doing icebreakers can make things feel more comfortable, but sometimes they're really cheesy or they don't have a purpose, and this one does. So the reciprocal student-professor interview, it's been empirically and repeatedly tested at universities across disciplines: in computer science, psychology, women's studies, education, students from diverse backgrounds too. So think about Sandy's concern and what I just said about inclusion. Big classes, small classes. Follow-up studies have even compared the results of what we did in classrooms and assessed how the students did long-term in that course. And because of empirically, they were able to find the professors who, what we just did today, at the first week of their semester, the students had more success throughout the course. Okay. So what I'm saying is, again, it's a best practice for the first day of class. You could do it face-to-face or online. It's empirically tested. And what you would do is you would replace those questions that I asked you with the word webinar with course. So your students would do the same thing we just did. You would put them in breakout groups and they would answer those questions, but instead of about webinar, it would be about the class. Do I have reservations about this class? Do I have, and all those kinds of things. As I said, the research has shown when they polled and studied students after doing this activity that they not only enjoy it, but they get, because everyone is involved. So all of you were involved in your breakout groups or in presenting, and they actually tell faculty they want them to do it on the first day of class. And the reason is it ultimately results in building a comfortable learning environment. So right now, the feeling I bet a lot of you are having, you may be feeling anxious about the first day, but aren't you feeling more bonded to BSU and the faculty you just communicated with, and hopefully me, right? By talking to your peers and talking to me, you're starting to feel more comfortable with it. And yes, I saw someone just put in the chat, reservations about the content. Of course, yeah, you would ask that question. Do you have reservations about a class in math? And I bet a ton of students in their groups, and then when they talk with you, will share that, right? I'm not good at math. And then you then respond just like I did with strategies and support how you will get them through the semester. They may not be good at math yet, but they will learn through your and with your support how to succeed in math, right? So the reciprocal interview alleviates and starts to add support to students, right? It builds rapport between students and faculty, just like I'm building rapport between me and you guys, and it builds communication and rapport between the students and you guys else. And ultimately, which is key because it's a goal of a first day of class, it clarified the professor's expectations. So you guys heard me saying, well, I don't have expectations for you to be perfect. I expect you to fail, right? My own philosophy is that I'm going to fail and I don't know how to use this tool and I can't figure out how to find the hand raise tool. Just you would do the same thing in your class, right? They would realize that your expectation is not perfection if that happens in the reciprocal interview, right? And so I know not underestimating the first day of class, but actually before COVID, a ton of faculty did. This is a strategy that should have always been used before COVID and now is even more important post-COVID. Every college teaching book emphasizes doing these things the first day of class. And so I encourage you to try, maybe, this is just going to be one strategy you're going to learn today, doing a typical student-professor interview. Whether you're teaching face-to-face or online, and even if students are in the wrong place, right, with high flex, right, you're going to have some students show up, some students online, that's okay. Still go through it, get through the reciprocal student interview. So again, I want to stress that this research existed before COVID, and it's even more important now. I did the same activity with my new faculty last year, and right now it's even more important now. So the research on the first day of class. James Lang is a very renowned, he's actually a professor of English up at a college in New England, but he's really got some books right now that are really popular if you want to read some really good books on small teaching. I do some webinars and some workshops on it. And he's an advice columnist for the Chronicle. And so you see here that last year he wrote, you can't really see it, but that was in 2019, he wrote this lengthy advice guide on how to teach a good first day of class, and synthesizes this research that I'm talking to you guys about, effective first day of classes. Now, he primarily was talking about face-to-face, but he actually is now the co-author of a book about online teaching, and I have that all in my references. So these will, as someone asked me earlier, the same best practices for a good first day of a face-to-face class work for an online class, and we're gonna get to that in a bit. So what are the overarching things you need to make sure you do in a first day of class? Well, James Lang has synthesized them for us right here. You need to spark curiosity. You need to build community. You need to actually engage students in learning. And you need to establish expectations. Those are the four main things that every good first day of class does. And if you just talk through your syllabus, which I know you guys won't do this year, but often faculty would do in former semesters, you maybe do number 4. Right? If you just talk through your syllabus, you set expectations, but probably not one, right? No one wants to just, that's not fun to just listen to a syllabus. Not really community building to just talk through a syllabus, and really not a lot of learning going on. So the key, I want to now reflect on the reciprocal interview we just did. So let's think about this. The reciprocal interview hopefully started to spark your curiosity. I think more of you were confused. You weren't really sure what you were doing, but that's okay. I mean, part of curiosity, the research on brain science shows that actually if you people feel like not all the pieces of the puzzle are given to them yet, right? That sparks cognitive, precognitive, and cognitive triggers in your brain. So in some sense, I hope the reciprocal interview made you sort of curious, right, about what this webinar was going to be about, right? What is she going to talk about? How is she going to solve all our problems? Well, I'm not going to solve all your problems, but similar if you did that with your students, right? It'll make them curious about what the class is going to be about. James Lang is a professor of English and an esteemed author, and you can Google him after today and you'll discover that. And similarly, community. So humanizing yourself to your students, just like one of our presenters said. So the reciprocal student-professor interview, again, I hope you guys saw it, started to humanize me as your instructor and you guys to each other. And so any kind of activity you would do that would have a community building element to it is what they say you should do the first day. Now, number 3, I didn't do that, actually. I would say that the reciprocal interview really wasn't a good example of learning. In some sense, I'm getting you guys to learn how to learn in breakout groups. But I didn't really do this, I would say, with the reciprocal student-professor interview. But I'm going to give you guys an example of how to do that on the next slide. And one thing that James Lang really says is, he says literally on the first day, first week, have students start to learn the concepts, even when they're not yet ready for it. Again, brain science research shows that we learn better when we try things before we're ready for them. So guess what? All of you who are kind of like, Blackboard Collaborate, where am I? The research shows it's actually, you're more likely to now learn Collaborate because I've thrown you into it before I've told you how to use Collaborate. That's what he's saying too, that on the very first day, start the learning even when you're not ready for it. So I'll give you an example in a second. And then last but not least, expectations. So I was trying to do that with the reciprocal interview where you guys were saying, well, what's your teaching philosophy, and how do you view us as teachers? And that I told you I do not expect you to be perfect. So similar, that I would do that with your students. And if any of you have ever done like a class constitution, which I talk about in my webinar on teaching with a mask on, that's similar, how to build your expectations in for the first day. So some of you are, rightly so, you were asking questions about how would we do this online, or how would we do this high flex? And a lot of you were sharing that you were having reservations about that, and that's totally true. Me too. I'm teaching a course similar that's going to have only 10 kids a day and 10 kids another day. So, so how might we do this online at the same time? So you've now seen how we could do it virtually here, but also you could do this literally face-to-face. But here is what the research says on online teaching. So oops, where is my slide? Shoot, that shouldn't be there. Oh no, oh my gosh, okay. Oh, okay, 4, 5, 6. Oh no, okay, so here's an example, you guys, where I lost my slide. Okay, let me hang tight for 1 second. My slide is missing on online teaching modules. So I may just have to wing this for you guys. I'm going to look for this slide while I talk to you. So what it should show in the next slide, oh, let me go back because I don't want you to see these ones, is, here, I'm going to close this. What it should show in the next slide is in online teaching, the best practices in online teaching, the first day of class is called the Getting Started module. So in online teaching, Quality Matters and books on teaching online talk about that your first week of class is actually what you would build into your online course as a Getting Started module. And my slide that I'm trying to find that somehow I lost would show you guys the basic premises that go into an online Getting Started module. And I'm a little worried that it got deleted at some point when I was working on this slide late last night to update it. So let me just open this up real quick, see if I can find it. Oh, it was such a great slide. Oh, okay, so it's gone. Well, guess what? Look at you. You're seeing lack of perfection here. So okay, so imagine this slide. I can't find it. It must have gotten deleted when I was editing things last night. So there was a slide, as I said, that said Getting Started module. And the main components of a Getting Started module are, you would start with, here I'm going to try to type these actually in the chat while I do it. So the key components of a Getting Started module from teaching online are, you would do a course navigation. So you would have, that would be one of your sub-modules. And that would be your first sub-module on how do they navigate through the course. So if someone else was saying for the first day of class they like to tell students about how the whole rest of the course is going to work, that's the same thing with teaching online. You would have a sub-module on the course navigation. You would then have a sub-module on the syllabus, okay? And similar, we're seeing that with face-to-face class. And then you would have a sub-module on your learning out objectives and expectations for the course. And that similarly we're seeing is what they say is the best practice for teaching face-to-face, that you go over your expectations. You would also have what they call an instructor introduction, which would be a welcome video from yourself, from faculty, but also you could have students, let's see, but also have students give welcome videos. Okay, so it's similar like we did with the reciprocal student interview. You would have students introduce themselves to each other, and you would introduce yourself to each other. And then the fifth, so there's 5 if I'm remembering my slide and best practices. The 5th submodule would be engagement, student engagement. So that aligns with what James Lang is talking about learning. Right? So again, if I'm remembering my slide and remembering the best practices in online teaching, there's 5 submodules within the overarching Getting Started module. Syllabus, course navigation, learning objectives and expectations, faculty introduction, welcome video with students, and a student engagement piece. So we see that Lang and the research on teaching face-to-face for the first day is very similar to the best practices for online. And the learning part of online would be you could do a syllabus quiz, for instance, or an even better example would be, which I had on my slide that James Lang talks about, is you have students actually start to work on part of your final assessment. So your final assessment is your final exam or your final project or something like that. And some of you are like, what? On the first week of class, students are going to start their final exam? Yes, that's what James Lang says. He says have students start to do these precognitive, start to do a learning task before they're ready for it. And so my examples were have students at least ask a question about what they will ask, have students ask at least one question about what to expect on the final exam in a discussion board, for instance. You could have them read the instructions for your final project and then submit a brief response in how they understand it. That's starting to get them. You could even ask them a question that you literally have on your final exam, like do it as a quiz, but don't grade it. And so they start to they'll fail, but then you talk about that, then they're going to learn how to answer that question through the course. So as I said, research from learning sciences shows that when we ask people to complete tasks before they learn something new, they will learn it more effectively. Okay, so what I hope that show you guys, I really apologize that that slide disappeared, that the best practices for online, for teaching face-to-face mirror those for teaching online. Remember, James Lang, and I do have that slide, I'll go back to that one. James Lang, he says you want to spark curiosity, you want to build community, you want to, what were the things again? You want to have a learning task, and you want to establish your expectations. And so similarly, the Getting Started module should do that as well for your online course. Yes, you have a question, Yakov?
Yes, I actually typed it already. So I understand quite well how to spark the curiosity, at least I'm trying to. And then I also understand how to share my expectation. So what about building community and learning? I'm not quite understand what it means essentially. So
okay,
how it practically kind of turned into the content of the first class.
Okay, so for instance, the interview, the reciprocal interviews that you guys did and working in breakout groups, did you start to feel a little more like connected to the people in your breakout group? Or right now, are you feeling like you learned more about me through the interview that you did with me?
Yeah,
and
I think so, yeah.
That's an example of building community. So you would need to have an activity or a Q&A where people self-disclose and talk through. That's just one example how to build community. We're gonna go back into breakout groups, and actually the task is gonna be for you guys to now work through your questions. Like, what are some other first day of teaching tips for that do these 4 things? So Jakob, hold that question and ask that of your peers. And then learning, I gave you guys a couple examples. Learning, you could do a syllabus quiz on the first day. You could do a writing prompt. I would do everything low stakes though. Low stakes meaning not graded. If you did a syllabus quiz or you asked them to reflect on the final project, literally do a learning task, but don't grade it for them. So that's what he means by learning. But I appreciate your question, because that's exactly what I'm going to ask us now to do in our breakout groups. So again, I apologize for not having that slide, but here is the task we're going to move into now, which is, and I'm going to write it into the chat, which is I'm going to now move you guys back into breakout group, but you're going to do it, it's going to be randomly assigned. So you may end up with some of the same people from the last time, you may not. And this time you're going to do almost what Yakov just asked us. I now want you guys to share with each other your tips and strategies for successful first day of class activities. Ones you've tried before, but also now ones that maybe you're thinking of based on this webinar and given the COVID context. And it can be face-to-face, it can be online. But the key is, as you talk through them, like Yakov was doing, start thinking, does it spark curiosity? Does it build community? Does it establish expectations? And might there be a learning task involved? Okay, so share strategies for teaching face-to-face or online the first day that, 1, spark curiosity. I'm writing this in my, since I don't have my slide. 2, build community. 3, sorry for the typos, you're going to see, establish expectations. And 4, I'll put maybe, because I didn't do that very well with my example, a learning task. Community. So is everyone clear on the instructions now for the breakout groups? And you'll have a good 20 minutes to work in breakout groups and do exactly that. Think through the reciprocal student interview and other tips that you have for teaching on the first day that do those 4 things: spark curiosity, build community, establish expectations, and maybe a learning task that isn't just kind of reading through the syllabus. So please write that down. I'm going to type it in the chat. You could take a picture of this chat if you want. And then you're going to go into your breakout groups, but I don't have a slide to share this time. So I appreciate your grace and patience with my lost PowerPoint slide. Okay, so let me set up breakout groups. Again, you're going to share strategies for teaching face-to-face or online the first day that spark curiosity, build community, establish expectations, and maybe there's a learning task involved, given, I know, the COVID context. Let me, randomly assign 8 groups. Okay, so here you go. You're going to end up in groups again, and I look forward to checking in and hearing about your ideas.
Oh,
Government. Let's see.
Big room, so you'll want to mute your mics. Please mute your mics. We're back in the big room. I'm sorry that felt kind of abrupt to move you in. I was going through all the different groups. And let me show you now how we're going to share, because you can imagine sharing with a group of 40, we don't have time for that, right? Similar with you who are teaching large lecture groups. So I'm going to show you a really cool interactive way now where we'll be able to share takeaways from your small groups and from this webinar. But let me get to my file. I do have this slide, I promise. So let me pull it up. And okay, so what we see in front of us is that by the end of this webinar, what I hope you've started to achieve is that you experienced a simulation of effective teaching. I hope you're seeing how I'm trying to effectively teach a synchronous online training course, right? You guys have gone into breakout groups. You've done an active learning reciprocal interview. I've used PowerPoint. We've used chat. You're going to see a new tool that we're going to use. We've started to identify the goals and best practices for the first day of class. So we talked about those 4 key principles and goals of a first day. And you guys shared in your group best practices, as well as I gave you the reciprocal interview example. You compared teaching face-to-face with teaching online, right, in your conversations, and we got that even in the reciprocal interview. And I had you guys start to build community and supportive relationships among your faculty. That was one of my learning goals for this activity, to work in groups and learn about each other through the chat at the beginning when I asked you to talk to each other and introduce yourself and get comfortable. So similar to when you teach, in faculty development, we have learning outcomes and we try to achieve them. So these were my learning outcomes for today. But we're not done. And so you guys are going to enjoy this. Now, some of you who have been in my webinars already know how to do this, so hold tight for a second. But now what I would like us to do, and this is for everyone to participate, is I want you to now reflect and think on your small groups and the whole webinar. What was one of your key takeaways? Okay, think to yourself, write it in your notes for the moment. Don't yet type yet. Don't answer my question at the bottom. But what was one key takeaway that you learned about teaching the first day of a face-to-face or online class, right? Or what was one aha moment from today, right? You're like, oh, I never thought of that before. Oh, gosh, like I need to figure out how to do this, okay? What was one key takeaway from tips for teaching for the first day and online, and or one aha moment that you had today, maybe even in your small group? Something came up that really is awesome that you're going to take away from today and implement. So everyone got that in your head, or maybe you wrote it down somewhere. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to tell everyone and share everyone with it. And there's 2 ways I'm going to ask everyone to share. Either type it now in the chat message, the group chat, or, and we're not going to have room for everybody, type on this beige whiteboard that you see in front of you. And the way you do that is look in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. You see a little T, and click on that T, and then you'll see a color, and pick the color, and then move your mouse down to the beige whiteboard, and it'll open up a text box and type your key takeaway from today. So, so everyone, I should see 37. There are 37 of you. Awesome, yay, someone, their key takeaway is gonna be the reciprocal interview. Mark, do you have a question? Unmute yourself. Mark?
No, I don't have a question.
Oh, okay. Okay. So everyone, go ahead, start writing it on the board. You're going to love this activity, see? And then you're going to be able to do this with your students, right? What's your key takeaway from today? You can write it in the chat too if you want to please post it in the chat too. If we're going to end up running out of room on this whiteboard. So, so please type it in the chat. Also change your colors, fiddle around with your colors so we have less blue, right? What's your key takeaway? Keep going. What did you learn from today? What was your, Nicole says this activity right now is a great close. Okay, but how might it help you on the first day of teaching, Nicole? I'm gonna push you on that. How could you do this activity right now on the first day? Especially if you're teaching online, Nicole, which I know you are, right? Could you have all of your students, oh, you did, okay. We have so many people, you guys, our whiteboard is going to get really messy. So it's hard to read all of them. But let's see, reciprocal interviews and best practices. People, so we may want to start writing in the chat. People said build community is what they learned from today's first day. Someone said quizzes the first day off of the syllabus. Someone said the meta-ness, using Blackboard to teach them about the different features. Someone said sharing concerns with students. Someone said giving grace to students on the first day. So if any of you posted things in the whiteboard that overwrote someone else, please go ahead and write that in the chat now so that we can make sure to see it. So if yours we can't see, please write it. So like there's a couple purples and blues. Building community to get to know students. Keep going, you guys, keep going. Individual accountability engagement. Share even some specific strategies that you guys that were new in your small groups. I jumped into a lot of them, and go ahead, share right now. Share in the chat. The whiteboard gets messy. Yeah, well, usually you don't want to do this with 40 people, which is hence why I'm wanting you guys to put more in the chat. So I can delete things off the whiteboard, but I don't want to delete it right now. So keep them coming, you guys. This is actually part of a teaching strategy for teaching online, is to build up the energy as people give your feedback. So cool. Introduce a key concept for the final project on the first day. Awesome, Rachel. Yeah, like that to me is just an amazing idea, to get students to do a learning task of thinking about the final on the first day, and they'll be able to share with you their reservations and problem solve it. Someone says introductory exercises, anonymous discussion boards for students on the first day. Ooh, I like that, so that we can kind of manage, as a lot of you were sharing, this anxiety and this panic that's going to happen on the first day. More, come on, keep coming more. What's another key takeaway? Something else. Flexibility with the syllabus. Good. Did anybody learn not to read the syllabus fully on the first day? That was always a good practice, and potentially one you definitely want to pay attention to during COVID. Of course, I think there will be very important parts of the syllabus to discuss, right? About your pedagogical model, the use of technology, the mask, wearing masks, build community on the first day. Ooh, I love, someone wrote on the whiteboard, we are not in this alone, it's all about community. Awesome. This is really great. Someone said use Discord to build community. Yeah, so different Web 2.0 tools. Admitting that teachers aren't perfect. What else? Keep them coming, you guys. Keep them coming. Be real with students on the first day. Yep, opening up to them. Being humanistic, like we were talking about. Hey, the group that was talking about masks, share your strategy. I want to share with everyone your strategy about mask wearing on the first day. There was a group that was talking about that in their group. How are they going to be humans and make a comfortable classroom environment on the first day while wearing masks? Who was in that group? Go ahead, share, right? Good, Kate, thank you. Kate said, wear a mask that reveals something about your personality. So again, one way to build community is wear a mask that reveals something about your personality. And so then your student, you can talk about that with your students. They can get to know the person behind your mask. right? We have this multi-billion-dollar industry on clothing and branding, so leverage that and to humanize yourself with your students. And Emily said, post a photo of yourself without a mask. Yes, so we were talking about that in that group. Think about it. Your face-to-face students are going to rarely see you without your mask. So just like a best practice for teaching online is to use a welcome video and post a picture of yourself, do that with your face-to-face students. I talk about this in my webinar actually on teaching face-to-face with a mask. Yeah, and we talked in that group, really for the first day, you're going to leverage your nonverbal skills, nonverbal communication, right? So first day under COVID, teaching face-to-face, all of these notions of being human and building community and communicating with, building rapport with your students are ever more important. Okay, so this is actually how I wanted to end our webinar for today, and I wanted us to have a little time to just now meet open-ended, ask questions for those of you who want to sit tight, or you are more than welcome to head out and take a break and attend to your body and your needs. I will post this PowerPoint slide in your new faculty BlazeView shell as well as in BlazeView 101, and I will go ahead and try to find or recreate the slide that was missing about the Getting Started online teaching module. Apologies. I will also post this recording for any of you to go back and rewatch. And these are the references and resources to the different scholarship that I was drawing on by James Lang, about the teacher reciprocal student interview, and about best practices for teaching online. So yep, all of the webinars from today will be, we're gonna probably get them all into your new faculty shell, Rachel. So we'll make sure to do that. They're all gonna be recorded through Collaborate, so we'll get them in there for you guys. So I'm gonna just hang tight and sit here. Sure, online communication etiquette especially during the webinar. Which webinar? Right now? Juan, maybe explain verbally if you can unmute yourself. Juan, can you? Yeah.
Jamie, I think the question may be, you know, how we might need to provide for our students, like you do before a webinar starts, you know, what's the etiquette and how to show, you know, could we maybe create some opening screenshots like in Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, you know, here's how we start, and here's how to mute, here's how to raise your hand, here's how to do that.
Sure. I mean, it's very easy for you guys to do that. You just screenshot stuff, but I'll see if eLearning can, I guess, create a document of a bunch of screenshots that you would then copy. And it's very easy. All you just do is screenshot them and put them in your PowerPoint. But I do love that idea. We do have eLearning does in general in the BlazeView 101 shell have etiquette communication guidelines for teaching online. And I know Colin's been talking about that in his webinar. So there are a lot of resources. I hesitate to establish one kind of etiquette because it really will matter by what modality you use. So I don't know if it sounds like you guys want etiquette so much as just the icons. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it's just helping students know how to manipulate the system, because a lot of times that may help faculty just as you get started, and the faculty can add different things to it. But you know, those screenshots.
Okay. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, the different icons and all that kind of stuff. Okay, sure. Yeah, we can work on creating a little bit thing too. Well, Donna, what do you mean by etiquette then? What else do you mean? If you could share orally.
No, I mean exactly what I think students won't know that they should probably mute their mics just to save bandwidth.
Yes. So sure. Yeah, we can create kind of a big list, and that's definitely happening in a lot of our webinars, like in Colin's webinar about asynchronous and synchronous teaching and using, he recommends that as a tip. But if I create like one big document of just overarching online virtual teaching etiquette icons, I think it sounds like that'll get at what you guys want. Yep. Okay, cool. Great questions. Sure, James, I'm going to click on you. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, is there any way to download like maybe a free version of Blackboard Collaborate, like from an online website? I'd love to be able to play around with this and get used to the idea of using this.
So great question. You're a new faculty, correct?
Yeah.
You are going to have a session this afternoon with Marcia Dukes. It says Introduction to BlazeView. And she's going to set up all of you what's called a sandbox. So in BlazeView, every faculty member will get what's called a sandbox. And it's exactly what you think of with children playing a sandbox. It's a fake course shell. And you get to play around and do whatever you want in that course shell. And in that course shell, you could play around in Blackboard Collaborate. So what a lot of you actually don't know, those of you who have been attending my webinars, not this one today, but I've been actually doing all of my webinars for SELT through my sandbox. So yeah, so it's basically a fake shell, and you can just do whatever you want with it. So yeah, you will get that today. Yep.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, great question. Yeah. Discord. Patty, I don't know what you meant when you meant Discord. Did you hear about that tool? I thought you were talking about a Web 2.0 tool.
I referenced it. It's just an informal type of thing like GroupMe or whatever, where students can gather and talk and share pictures and things like that. I like to use it just because fostering community, right? The big problem that I have with things like BlazeView is that it's very, very formal, and so students don't talk, they don't communicate, they don't share emails. Like even if you put up discussion boards, they generally don't go there unless you tell them, you require them to. And so I like to add things like Discord or GroupMe where they could just be a little informal.
Great. So that we actually pay for a license of something that's called VoiceThread, which kind of functions like Discord. So it's another external learning tool that will be in your BlazeView shell, and it's exactly that. It's kind of functions like social media. It's an asynchronous tool that you can embed in your course. And Sherry Gravett, now that you're listening on, now you know why I want us to continue to support this license. But this is that's exactly I agree with you. I don't know who was that was talking about Discord, but Carson, that BlazeView is meant for asynchronous learning. So that's maybe a word a lot of you want to wrap your head around. Asynchronous means not live, right? On your own time, self-paced by the student. And for that reason, it can feel often less interactive, less live, less engaging. So that's why we have licenses like Blackboard Collaborate and a license to something called VoiceThread, because they're much more interactive. They have the feel more of social media, just like even today when all of you were, writing in chat and writing on the board and all that, it felt a lot more engaging. So Carson, you would probably really like VoiceThread. And there's actually, and then who was it, Patty? You may want to, there's a training on VoiceThread next week. So if you want to go in to sign up for that training, you can learn about it. But yes, any free web, what they call free Web 2.0 tools, totally leverage them in however way you want to. Those are great questions. Other questions? Yep, Sandy?
Jamie, I wanted to ask you, if we use VoiceThread, are we supposed to stay in it and watch what's going on? Because with GroupMe, my embedded student instructors would set up GroupMe chats, and the students would happily get into this. And then it turned into this horror scene. I was not in their GroupMe chats, but one of my SIs turned it off because they got so ugly. And
yeah, so actually that probably goes back to the etiquette that Donna and them were talking about, that yes, just like you establish kind of class management strategies for a face-to-face class, you want to make sure to have sort of guidelines and buy-in on how we will be I don't like the word civility, but an inclusive, let's use the word, an inclusive online community with each other. So it doesn't, like you said, turn into the worst case of social media, right? Where people get really vitriolic and angry. So, I mean, if it sometimes that just happens. And like you said, I think you did the right thing by kind of shutting it down. But if you set some guidelines at the beginning and everyone kind of buys in on it, then you're less likely to have that conflict after the fact. So yes, VoiceThread, getting back to your question, the VoiceThread does function. It keeps going without you having to be in it. But you can control, you'll have to get it. It's a pretty cool tool. It does a lot of things. You can do peer critique in it. So you can still kind of structure things. It's not a free for all either. Does that help, Sandy? Hopefully.
Yes, ma'am, it sure does. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Can you shut it down when they are testing online? Okay, so that's more of a question about proctoring. So you're having a question about like cheating, Patty? Like if they were using other tools to cheat? Okay, that's a whole nother question. And guess what? Sherry Gravitt, our associate provost, and your department heads should know about the current situation with online proctoring here at VSU. We have best practices and guidelines. We do have a license to some proctoring tools, but they're limited. No tool is seamless, and so we actually recommend that you move away from proctoring when you can and think about alternative assessments for exams. And so actually I ran a webinar on that. And so you could go watch the webinar in BlazeView 101 the other day. I think I'm running another one tomorrow if you want to sign up for it. I think I'm running 2 more sessions of it, about really thinking more about why you're giving an exam. What's the purpose of your exam? And in fact, your learning objectives may not even be achieved with an exam. So often we can even get away from the need for proctoring or move away from students cheating if you rethink your assessment strategy, Patty. So I guess my answer to you is yes. There are a lot of ways that students can use technology for academic dishonesty, and we do have some tools. But Sherry, you want to jump in?
I was just going to say that, with the Respondus lockdown session, which would close down things like VoiceThread and stuff like that, if you're using lockdown in conjunction with the new Respondus monitor. And there's a bunch of instructions for all of that on the website. I sent information around about the other day.
It would close down the browser on the device you're on, but the student could still technically pull it up on their phone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what exactly, Patty. Like we have tools that will lock their browsers, and actually we're buying a license to a tool that the camera right now that's looking at me, we just purchased a license so that the camera will also monitor them, and that works. But again, remember, students have multiple devices, so So Sherry Gravitt, the provost office, just sent out some really great guidelines on how to manage proctoring exams and maybe think of some alternatives. Where is the Collaborate app embedded in BlazeView? So it's in the external learning tools module, and so you have to kind of like add it in. But once it's in there forever for that course. And so you will, as Donna said, learn that in your session later today, and they'll give you all the resources on how to do it. It's really easy to it's pretty, you just kind of have to click a few things and then it gets in there.
Jamie, I was just going to say, as we're coming to 11 o'clock for the new faculty, they're going to have another session at 11:15. With our registrar, Stanley Jones, in the same location. So if they want to take a break, I
actually already said they should take a break. If you saw, about 10 of them have left. So yes, Sherry's reminding us that now we're officially at the end of this session. And again, I want to thank you. Please get up, stretch, like I said, get comfortable. And then come back into the same Blackboard Collaborate link that you followed and the registrar will be here. And
thank you, Jamie. You were wonderful today. I appreciate it.
okay, sorry for the tech issues, but give us grace, you know. So.
Yeah,
Okay, bye everyone. I'll see some of you tomorrow for the new faculty learning community.
Thank you,
bye.
Jamie.
Yeah.